Hey guys, how's it going? Anthony Muthurajah here, back with part 1 of our studies in music theory. Today we're going to take a look at the 12 tones available in Western harmony or Western music, intervals, and chord scale constructions. Alright, so I have written out the 12 tones here on my little whiteboard. It's been a while. Now, the notes written in black are what we call the natural tones. They are neither sharp nor flat, and that is what makes up your C major scale or A minor scale, basically the white keys on a piano. Now you have 5 sharpened or flattened notes, and together that makes it 12. So I've written the sharps in red, the flats in green. Now A sharp and B flat, for example, they are the same pitch, but they have a different name. And that's what we refer to as an enharmonic equivalent. Now, one of the main reasons we do that is, for example, when you're constructing a scale. A C major scale has no sharps or no flats. But when you go to G major, for example, you have one sharp, which is your F sharp. Now, you could think, why can't I call it a G flat? And the reason we don't call it a G flat is because we already have a note name G. So to keep things visually simple, we make it F sharp. So G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp going to G, not G flat going to G. That just creates a lot of confusion. So that's where the enharmonic equivalents really help us distinguish different scales based on their sharps and flats, or certain other scales like diminished scales where we use double flats as well. And that's the reason we do that. We don't want any repetition of any note names. All right. So now, what are intervals? Intervals is basically the distance or the space between two notes. All right. So we're going to take a look at intervals starting from A as our reference point, and we're going to go all the way to the octave A, which I haven't written down here, but I figured it'll be obvious. Now you're going to hear me use two words a lot, and they are semitone and tone. Now a semitone is basically going up a half step or a minor second. That's another way to call it. So A to A sharp is a semitone or a minor second interval. A to B is a major second interval or a tone, or you can also call it a whole tone. All right. So now when you think about the whole tone scale, the whole tone scale is basically just whole tones. So A to B, B to C sharp to D sharp to F, F to G. That is a whole tone. Carrying on with the intervals, so A to B is a major second, A to A sharp is a minor second, A to C is a minor third, A to C sharp is a major third, A to D, perfect fourth, A to D sharp is an augmented fourth or a sharp 4, A to E flat is a diminished fifth or a flat fifth, A to E is a perfect fifth, A to F, minor sixth, A to F sharp, major 6, A to G, minor 7, A to G sharp, major 7, and once we get to the octave, that note will become the 8th or the perfect octave. And then the B flat after the 8th becomes a flat 9, not a minor second anymore, because intervals, they keep going in a sequence. So once you have finished an octave, it doesn't repeat the same intervallic distance from the previous octave, so you have to keep adding on your numbers. But that's where you will never see a chord. The highest tension you would use on a chord is a 13. You don't have, at least commonly used, you don't have 14 or 16 major and 19. You don't have those kind of chords. So at 13, that's where it kind of stops. Like for example, a G major 7 13. Right? You wouldn't do something like this. That is an octave above from the 13. Right? So the 13 is kind of the maximum range that is commonly used as far as your intervallic choices go with chords, or with chords. Okay? So that's intervals. Now we're going to take a look at scale construction. Now scales are constructed based on a sequence of whole steps and half steps, or semitones and whole tones. So let's take a look at C major. So we know it's all the natural notes. So C, D, E, F, G, A, B. All right. So you have whole step, half step, whole, half. All right. So basically, what the W and the H indicate is the interval or the distance that note travels. So it goes a whole step, and then a half step to F, whole step, and then from the B, it's a half step to the C. All right, so that's your C major scale. Cool. Very simple. Now, for example, if you take a melodic minor scale, all we do is we flatten the third note of a C major scale. So instead of the D going a whole step, it just goes up a half step, and the rest of it continues. And obviously from the E flat, it's a whole step to the F, and the rest of it remains the same in a melodic minor. So that one interval changes the entire scale. So a C major, C melodic minor, and it's so amazing how one note can affect the entire scope of the sound. All right, so that's major scale and the melodic minor. We looked at it briefly. Now I want you to just explore and see what happens if you start tweaking one note at a time and see what happens with the sound. For example, let's say I take the G, I make it a G sharp, so I won't have G. Now, if you look at it from a different point, if I make this G a G sharp, it's an A harmonic minor. That's how we recall it. Right? Okay, now what happens if I sharpen the F? You get this, the Lydian sound. Right? So sit down and just mess around with trying to sharpen or flatten any one of these tones, right? Because what I'm trying to do is trying to make this as informal as possible. These are certain guidelines I'm giving you, but use the guidelines and just explore and just try to keep it creatively fun and musically fun as well. All right, so that's how we construct scales based on sequences of whole steps and half steps, or minor second interval, major second interval, or whole tone and semitones. Now these are all just different words to indicate the same thing. Whatever sticks in your mind better, go for it. All right. Now the next thing we're going to look at are chords and how we construct them. So we're going to still stick with the C major scale. Now, typically when we create chords, we are stacking thirds on top of each other. So in a scale, you just take every third note. So let's say C major. So 1, 3, 5. C, E, G. That is your C major chord. Everyone knows it that way, right? But there are many ways to play it. Cool. Now, that is how you create chords. So if I move this same thirds shape to the next scale degree, I'll get D, F, A, which is D minor. Right? Again, there are many ways to play it. Right? So, just stacking up thirds, we get triads. 3 notes make triads. Now, if I put another third on top for the C major, I get the 7th, and that's how we get your C major 7. So 1, 3, 5, 7. Right? Now the cool thing is, depending on how you voice your chords, you can sneak in different intervallic sounds. For example, if I take a spread kind of voicing of C major 7, okay, E, B, C, G. Okay, so now I have a perfect fifth, then I have a minor second here, and I have a perfect fifth again. So just because the intervallic sequence says this doesn't mean that is how the chord will forever be played, because if that's the case, your C major 7 will sound like this, which is kind of cool, but like Alan Holdsworth says, that sounds ugly, and I kind of agree. I don't like that sound. What I much rather hear is this. So if I look at the intervals in this kind of a voicing, it's B to E, perfect fourth, E to G, minor third, G to C, perfect fourth again. Right? This is all the thirds stacked, and this is with the fourth, minor third, fourth. Cool. So now typically this is how I create or come up with unique voicings compositionally. I take a chord in its existential form, and then I tweak the notes arrangement to create different intervals. So you get very rich sounds without having to, try to figure out a specific way to play this kind of a sound or just that voicing. So you're taking one chord, a C major 7, and you're just trying to spread them out in many intervallic possibilities. Right? So, for example, I can do a C major 7 like this. So what I'm doing here is I'm playing a perfect fifth, and then the octave above, I'm playing the major 7 and the third on top. Okay? Now, I remember I said earlier that we don't go beyond the 13 as far as chords go. That is for sure as far as writing it down goes, right? And practically as well, you don't go beyond the 13. But this kind of a voicing has a very strong effect to it. It gives you a different option as opposed to something like this. This one. So now you're extending the entire range and you're allowing different ideas to seep in. And having a good control of the range of your instrument is very crucial. And having intervals and chords and scales is one of the best ways to develop that knowledge of range control on your instrument. All right, so for the next part, I'm going to take a look at seventh chords exclusively and tension, chords with tension basically, and how we create them and how we come up with them and how we voice them and use them. All right, so I hope you guys got something out of this. If you have any questions, please feel free to get in touch with me or drop me a comment below. Cool, so until the next one, I'll see you guys in the shed. Peace.